Hey YouTube, what's going on, and welcome back to Cairo and his things. Today we're going to take a look at a tactical offering from Armytek, which is the Partner C2, and this is one of their new partner releases from that line from 2024. Hey all, only 3% of my viewers are subscribers. As a small channel, if you'd consider subscribing, I'd really appreciate it. Thank you. First, we're going to cover all the basic specs on this light, and then at the end of the video, I'll get into my final thoughts and opinions. So first off, let's go ahead and get into the dimensions on this light, which I'll throw up on the side of the screen. And while we do that, I'm going to show you guys some size comparisons. First up, we have the Workhos FC11 with this Armytek Partner C2. Both of these are 18650 lights. And it looks like the Armytek is going to be a little bit longer. Now it does have that crenulated bezel on there, which the Workhos does not, and it does have a deeper reflector. But regardless, you are looking at a little bit of extra length there on the Partner. And then in diameter, I can't get too close because they both have magnets, but it looks like the Armytek is just slightly thicker than the Workhos is. Another comparison we have here is going to be the Armytek Wizard C2. So this is going to be a headlamp, and this is also an 18650. So as you can see, the Partner C2 is going to be a bit longer there, and on diameter they're going to be very, very close to the same, with a slightly larger tail here on the Partner C2. And finally, I'll show you the Sofirn SP35T, which is also dual switch light. However, this is in 21700, so a much larger battery. And as you can see, they're quite a bit longer on the Sofirn and significantly thicker as well. For battery and charging, you can access the battery through the tail. The head is glued on, so we'll go ahead and unscrew this. And we're working with an Armytek branded 3200 milliamp 18650 battery. This is going to be an unprotected cell, flat top. Additionally, the Partner C2 can take two CR123As instead of an 18650 if you prefer that. As far as the battery indicator, there is a light behind this button, so if you're out at night and you get to a low battery, it will flash red on you. As far as charging, this uses a magnetic charger, which is going to charge off the tail. And this is going to be the same charger you're going to see for the majority of Armytek branded lights. Now, even though I'm not a fan of proprietary chargers, there are some pros and cons to how they did this charger on here. A major pro being the fact that this is pretty much weatherproof at this point. There's no USB slot for anything to get through to. It's completely enclosed in there. And so this makes this a little bit more bomb-proof than it already is. However, the major con being that, for one, you can't just use this with the USB cord, and the fact that you have to keep around another proprietary charger. For me, this isn't a huge deal because I charge pretty much all my flashlights the same way. I take the batteries out and I charge them in a third-party charger. However, if you're used to being able to charge everything via USB, that might be an issue for you. Some extra notes on the charging is that you want to leave this fully screwed on for the tail when you're charging. There are some Armyteks where you have to unscrew a quarter of the way. You do not want to do that on the Partner C2. And additionally, although you can charge an 18650 in here with the magnetic charger, you cannot do so with the CR123As. So if you're going to use CR123As, you need to take those out and charge them elsewhere. All right, let's get into the design of this flashlight. On the tail, we have a metal E-switch or electronic switch. And to me, Just the way that it feels, it almost kind of reminds me of a soup can in the way that it feels. And then you'll see that around that button, that's where we have the magnetic ring for the charger, but that also means that we have the benefit of getting a magnet even with having a tail switch. The magnet, in my opinion, is quite weak on this Partner C2. It will stick, but it is wobbly. It doesn't stay on well. It doesn't feel super secure. Now, don't get me wrong, I'd rather a weak magnet than no magnet, but if you just take a look at the Wizard C2, which also uses that magnetic ring, that's got a really good stick to it. It's strong. I feel secure when using it. It's got a great magnet. For some reason on the Partner C2, it does have a bit of a weaker magnet. It will slide on you a bit. As seen in the unboxing of this video, this does come with a lanyard. However, I'm not a big fan because in order to use it, you have to use this little clip with this ring. I initially did that, and what kept happening was that this kept sticking to the magnet, and then it just kept getting in the way. I couldn't tail stand it, and it was just making things really irritating when I had the lanyard around my hand, so I took that off. So then I decided, okay, let's just go ahead and throw on a generic third-party lanyard. But I will say in doing so, the lanyard hole for this Armytek is so much significantly smaller than any flashlight I've ever seen. My wife had to use little crochet tools to try to get it through, and even then it was still a problem. She really had to work at it to get this this lanyard on here, but thankfully it is on here. And because not only do I prefer to use a lanyard, but if we take a look at the clip that comes with it, in my opinion, it's not a great clip. Here's the clip that comes with it. As you can see, it's quite small. And if you have that on, that means you've got that much of the tail sticking out of your pocket. For me, if I'm going to use a clip, I prefer it to be a deep carry clip. But doesn't matter too much to me anyway since I use a lanyard. But just a note, if you are going to use the lanyard and you're going to use something from a different brand or just a generic one like this, it's got a really, really small lanyard hole there. When we open up the tail on this, I'll show you guys here. It comes with very well lubed threads here, so that's great. And probably the strongest spring I've ever seen on a flashlight before. That spring is insane. It's got really good quality parts, but it also means you've really got to press this in to get it screwed back on. I had to fight with it at first. I wasn't expecting to have to press that hard. As far as the grip and body of this light, I can lock my hands in there between the head and the tail, although my fingers do overlap a bit. Now there's no knurling on the tube whatsoever, but this does have that same quality matte finish that you see on other Armytek lights as well. And I find that my hands stick really well on this, and I find that this material holds up really well and is extremely durable. Moving on up to the side switch here, we've got a yellow rubber side switch. This is going to be the same switch that you're going to see in pretty much all Armyteks, and it is a great switch. So for one, it's rounded out, it protrudes, it sticks out a bit, so it's very easy to click, it's very easy to find, and this is probably my favorite side switch on the market, especially as far as a rubber one goes. There's no dead space on this button. You would expect on a rubber button to be dead space, but there's not. You get a really good solid click all the way around. I love this side switch. It feels really good to click. It's very responsive. And as you see, we get a metal ring around the switch. Moving on up to the top of the head here, we've got a crenulated bezel. And in my opinion, this is pretty much just right. You don't really want it much longer than this, or it's going to start getting a bit aggressive, uncomfortable to carry. But it's still enough there where you definitely have crenulations in the bezel. And they feel good, and they actually seem like they serve a purpose. I really like the bezel on here. Now when we turn the light up this way, we can see we've got a deep reflector in there, and our emitter is going to be a Cree XBL high. So this is basically going to be an emitter that's a bit more on the throwy side, which is what you want out of a tactical style flashlight. But it's also going to give you a really nice beam profile and a nice tint as well. As far as performance on this light, I'm going to go ahead and throw those numbers up on the side of the screen. One thing to note is that those numbers are going to reflect the cool white version of this light. So you can actually get this same flashlight in either a cool white or a neutral white, meaning you can get this in two different tints. Something to note is that the cool white tint is going to give you a little bit of a better performance, whereas the neutral white, although it may not get quite as strong, it will be a little bit of a prettier tint. The driver in this is going to be a constant current driver or linear. One thing that's nice about that is it means that it's going to be able to run on its lower settings for longer periods of time, as we saw in those performance numbers. Let's move on to the user interface on this light. Everything is going to be accessed initially through the tail, meaning that if you click the side switch while it's off, nothing's going to happen. So your tail switch is going to give you your on and off features. Now, there is a bit of travel when you go to click it on, and the reason for is because if you hold it halfway, you can get momentary, which is really nice. All right, so let's go ahead and turn it on. Once we have it on, that's where the side switch is going to come into play. So you're going to click to rotate through your settings. This is a very simple user interface. It's going to rotate low, medium, high. Okay, if you want to access turbo while on, you need to hold, and then that's going to ramp up the turbo. And then I can hold and go back to the last setting that I was on. Now, if you're using this in maybe a more tactical self-defense type setting and you want this to go into instant turbo, one thing that is very nice is this light does have memory mode, meaning if we turn this on and I hold the turbo, I'm going to turn it off. Now the last thing that it was on is what it's going to go to. So you can make this go direct to turbo. You can even get turbo and momentary. If you want strobe to be in your standard cycle settings, so for example, it'll rotate instead of going low, medium, high, it'll go low, medium, high, strobe, and then back to low. You can hold the side switch while off and then click the tail switch. And it's the same thing if you want to turn that off and take it out of your cycle. Of course, I leave it out. I don't usually access strobe on a normal basis. All right, now let's go ahead and take this outside and take a look at some beam shots. All right, guys, let's go ahead and get into final thoughts on this flashlight. So the first and most important thing for me is the fact that, of course, although I do like a lot of my new flashlights that I get and I get excited, really the way that I know if I really, really like a light is if I'm just constantly reaching for it. I've got a lot of different flashlights, and what I go to grab every day, if it ends up being the same flashlight, I know I'm really, really into it and that it's going to be something that I like for a long time. And so this Armytek has been something that I'm just constantly grabbing for the past couple weeks since I've had it. I'm pretty much grabbing it every day. I'm really enjoying carrying it, enjoying using it. So that means something for me. I think that it has a good tail switch, and I think that it has a great side switch. I really like the attention to detail that they put into this flashlight, the quality that we get. It feels very durable. It really just seems like the quality control was just phenomenal on this light. Everything from the fit and finish down to the materials used, this is just a phenomenal light. I can tell that I'm holding something of really good quality in production. And some other great things to highlight about this and reasons why I keep reaching for it is because it's got that great beam profile, because it's got a good size considering what you're getting out of this flashlight, and because I love the bezel that they put on here. All these things for me make up just a phenomenal flashlight. There is, of course, some things that I would like to see improved. For example, putting a stronger magnet on there. Again, I don't want to complain too much. I'm glad that it even has a magnet. But this is pretty weak, especially considering that that Wizard has a much stronger magnet ring on it. I'd like to see a better clip included. I just don't feel that this clip is very good. And I suggest if you're going to use a clip to get a third-party one. Unless that really doesn't bother you to have that much of the flashlight sticking out. I'd additionally like to see a bigger lanyard hole here, because it shouldn't be this much of a pain to get a lanyard in there. But hey, at least we can see it can be put in there. But overall, I've got to say, I love this flashlight. I'm very, very happy with it. If there's ever been a tactical dual switch flashlight that I can recommend to people, this is one, because it's not only one that's just really nice to use, but I feel that it's going to last you for a long, long time. As far as price, we're going to be looking at $70 on the Armytek website. And one more thing I want to mention is that I was not aware when getting this that there's an entire line from Armytek for this Prime line, which seems really similar. I'm just not familiar with the Prime line whatsoever. If you guys are, please leave a comment. Let me know, how does that stack up to this Partner C2? Is it something that I should get my hands on, or are they really similar? I'd love to hear a little bit more about that Prime line. Thanks so much for watching, and have a great week.